Who are the Syrians? Beneath the surface of this ancient and vibrant culture lies a genetic story spanning tens of thousands of years. A story of migrations, empires, and civilizations that shaped not just a nation but an entire region. From the Natufians of the Stone Age to the mighty Amorites of the Bronze Age, the genetic origins of Syrians reveal an extraordinary tapestry of human history. But how did all these ancient peoples come together to create the modern Syrian identity? And are today's Syrians connected to legendary civilizations like the Assyrians? Stick around as we dive deep into the DNA of one of the world's oldest and most fascinating populations. Trust me, you don't want to miss this journey into the genetic past of Syria. Let's begin by exploring just how diverse the Syrian people are. Syria has always been a crossroads of civilizations, and its genetics reflect this beautifully. If you travel to the northern parts of Syria, you'll notice a stronger influence of ancient Anatolian DNA. This stems from early farming communities that lived just north of Syria thousands of years ago. But head east and the story changes. Here, you'll find traces of Mesopotamian and Natufian-like ancestry, pointing to deep connections with the Fertile Crescent, the birthplace of agriculture and some of humanity's earliest cities. What makes Syrians unique is that they're not defined by one ancient population. Instead, they're a blend of multiple groups that shaped the region over thousands of years. Picture it as a tapestry, each thread representing a different ancient population, woven together to create something truly remarkable. From the Stone Age to modern times, this diversity has not only shaped their DNA, but also their culture, traditions, and identity. So, who are the Syrians? They are the descendants of farmers, hunters, and settlers who lived and thrived in one of the most pivotal regions in human history. But to fully understand this rich legacy, we need to go back, way back to the Stone Age, where this story truly begins. To understand the genetic origins of Syrians, we have to start with the Stone Age, where two key populations shaped the region. First, we have the Natufians, an ancient group that lived in the Levant over 15,000 years ago. They were some of the world's earliest proto-agriculturalists, laying the groundwork for farming and settled life. Today, about 27% of the Syrian genome traces back to these Natufians, a testament to their enduring influence. Next, we meet the Anatolian Neolithic farmers, who lived just north of the Natufians around 9,000 years ago. These farmers didn't just stay put. They migrated into Syria and other parts of the Levant, mixing with the Natufians. This union created a new genetic identity known as the Levant Neolithic farmers. These early farmers make up around 40 to 50% of the Syrian genome and left their mark not only in Syria but across West Asia and even parts of southern Europe. This blending of Natufians and Anatolian Neolithic farmers was pivotal. It set the stage for the region's genetic identity and contributed to the rise of complex societies. In many ways, this genetic mix is the foundation of what we now recognize as the Levantine heritage, tying together ancient cultures with the Syrians of today. But the story doesn't stop there. The Stone Age ended, and new waves of people began arriving in the region, bringing even more changes to Syria's genetic makeup. As we move forward in time to the Copper Age, the genetic landscape of Syria begins to shift dramatically. This period, which began about 7,000 years ago, saw mass migrations of people carrying new ancestries into the region. Among them were groups rich in Iranian Neolithic and Caucasian hunter-gatherer DNA. These newcomers didn't just pass through, they mixed with the existing populations, leaving a lasting mark on the genetic heritage of Syrians. The Iranian Neolithic component is particularly important. It brought with it a unique genetic signature that now accounts for around 20% of the Syrian genome. This ancestry, combined with the earlier Natufian and Anatolian influences, created a diverse and dynamic population that would lay the groundwork for the Bronze Age civilizations. Why does this matter? Because these migrations set the stage for some of the most influential groups in ancient history, including the Amorites. These Bronze Age people, who we'll explore in more detail later, inherited this rich mix of genetic influences. The Copper Age wasn't just a transitional period, it was a turning point, marking the beginning of a more connected and cosmopolitan region. So, from the Stone Age to the Copper Age, we see how the genetic story of Syrians continues to evolve. Each wave of migration and mixing added new layers to their identity, shaping not only their DNA but also the civilizations that would rise and fall in this ancient land. The Bronze Age was a transformative era for Syria, both culturally and genetically. One group that played a pivotal role during this time was the Amorites. Emerging around 2000 BCE, the Amorites were a Semitic-speaking people who dominated the region, establishing powerful city-states like Mari and Babylon. But they didn't just leave their mark on history. The Amorites also shaped the genetic makeup of modern Syrians. Genetic studies reveal that Bronze Age populations, including the Amorites, contribute 50 to 70% of the ancestry of modern Syrians. This means the majority of Syrian DNA today can be traced back to this era. The Amorites, blending with earlier groups like the Natufians, Anatolian farmers, and Iranian Neolithic settlers, became the backbone of Syria's genetic heritage. What made the Amorites so influential was their mobility and adaptability. They didn't just stay in one place. They expanded, mingling with other cultures and spreading their genetic influence across the Levant. Their legacy is woven into the very fabric of Syria, from its ancient cities to the people who call this region home today. The Amorite story reminds us that the Bronze Age wasn't just about kingdoms and conquests. It was also a time of connection and integration. But how does this relate to other ancient groups, like the Assyrians? Let's explore that next. Now here's a question that often sparks curiosity. Are modern Syrians directly related to the ancient Assyrians? To answer this, we need to look at both history and genetics. The ancient Assyrians were a dominant force in Mesopotamia, ruling vast territories from around 2500 BCE to 600 BCE. But genetically, they were distinct from the populations of the Levant, including ancient Syria. Modern genetic studies show that while some overlap exists, modern Syrians are not direct descendants of the Assyrians. Instead, they are more closely related to the Amorites and other Bronze Age Levantine groups. In fact, genetic distance charts reveal that modern Assyrians and Armenians are the closest living relatives of the ancient Assyrians. This makes sense when you consider that the Assyrians remained concentrated in what is now northern Iraq and parts of Turkey, while Syria experienced waves of migration and conquest that diluted any direct genetic links. So, while modern Syrians and Assyrians share some ancient ties, their genetic stories have taken very different paths. This distinction is key to understanding the diversity of the region and how its populations evolved over time. Syria's history is a story of conquest, and with each new empire came new genetic influences. The first major wave began with the Persian Empire, which ruled the region for over 2 centuries. Persian DNA left subtle traces, particularly in eastern Syria, where contact with Mesopotamian and Iranian populations was strongest. Next came the Greeks, led by Alexander the Great. His conquests brought Hellenistic culture to the region, blending Greek and local traditions. This era of cultural fusion left behind not only new architectural styles but also genetic markers, particularly among urban populations. Then came the Romans, who ruled Syria for centuries and named the northern province Coela Syria. The Roman era facilitated trade and migration, introducing Mediterranean genetic influences from regions like Italy and North Africa. This cosmopolitan culture shaped Syria's identity and added to its genetic diversity. But these conquests didn't erase Syria's ancient genetic foundations. Instead, they added new layers to an already complex tapestry, blending influences while preserving the core ancestry from the Bronze Age. This continuous integration of new populations makes Syrians one of the most genetically diverse groups in the Middle East, a living testament to their region's vibrant and ever-evolving history. When the Rashidun Caliphate expanded into Syria in the 7th century CE, it brought more than just religion and governance. It introduced a significant Arabian genetic component to the region. This marked a new chapter in Syria's genetic story, one that would shape its identity for centuries to come. Genetic studies show that Arabian DNA peaks among Syrian Muslims, particularly in the eastern and southern parts of the country. This is a reflection of the region's proximity to the Arabian Peninsula and the integration of Arab tribes during and after the Islamic conquests. As the Bedouin tribes settled, they mixed with the local populations, adding a distinct layer of Arabian ancestry to the Syrian gene pool. But this wasn't a one-way exchange. The Syrians themselves influenced the broader Arab world culturally and genetically, with their cities becoming centers of knowledge and trade under the Islamic Caliphates. From Damascus, the political heart of the Umayyad Caliphate, to the agricultural hubs of the south, Syria became a key player in the Islamic Golden Age. The genetic legacy of the Islamic Caliphate underscores the interconnectedness of the Arab world and Syria's role as a bridge between ancient civilizations and emerging Islamic empires. It also highlights how Syria's diverse population continued to evolve, adapting to new influences while retaining its ancient roots. The Crusades were one of the most dramatic episodes in Syrian history, but their genetic impact was surprisingly minimal. European Crusaders established principalities like Antioch and Damascus, but their stay in the region was relatively short-lived. While some intermarriage occurred, the Crusaders left little lasting genetic legacy, as they were ultimately defeated by local powers. One of those powers was the Ayyubid dynasty, led by the famous general Saladin. Under his leadership, Syria was reconquered, and its cities flourished once again as centers of trade and culture. The Ayyubid era reinforced the region's Levantine identity, with only minor genetic contributions from the Kurdish ruling elite. In the 13th century, the Mongols arrived, sweeping across the region in a wave of destruction. Their incursions devastated cities and displaced populations, but their genetic influence was limited. Unlike in other regions they conquered, the Mongols did not settle in Syria in large numbers, leaving behind only traces of East Asian ancestry. These turbulent centuries tested Syria's resilience, yet its genetic and cultural identity remained remarkably intact. The people adapted to new rulers and survived invasions, preserving their Levantine heritage while absorbing small influences from their conquerors. The Ottoman Empire ruled Syria for over 400 years, a period that deeply shaped the region's culture and demographics. Under Ottoman rule, Syria became part of a vast, cosmopolitan empire that facilitated movement and trade across 3 continents. This era introduced a wave of genetic diversity, blending foreign influences with the existing population. The Ottomans brought settlers and officials from across their empire, including Egyptians, Circassians, Armenians, Kurds, Turks, and Greeks. These groups mingled with local Syrians, leaving a genetic imprint that persists to this day. For example, Circassian communities relocated to Syria during the 19th century added distinct Caucasian ancestry to the mix. Similarly, Armenian refugees fleeing persecution during the late Ottoman period also contributed to Syria's genetic diversity. The Ottomans' emphasis on urbanization and trade made Syrian cities like Aleppo and Damascus melting pots of culture and ancestry. These cities became hubs where merchants, soldiers, and officials from different parts of the empire crossed paths, exchanged ideas, and intermarried. By the end of Ottoman rule, Syria had become a microcosm of the empire's diversity, reflecting centuries of migration and integration. This period cemented Syria's reputation as one of the most culturally and genetically diverse regions in the Middle East, a legacy that continues to define its people today. Modern Syrians are living proof of a genetic mosaic shaped by thousands of years of migration, conquest, and cultural exchange. Today, they carry the legacy of ancient Amorites, Assyrians, and Neolithic farmers, as well as influences from Persians, Greeks, Romans, Arabs, and Ottomans. This blend of ancestry makes Syria one of the most genetically diverse regions in the world. However, this diversity varies across regions and communities. For example, Syrians from the north often show stronger Anatolian and Caucasian genetic influences, while those in the east reflect Mesopotamian and Arabian ancestry. In the south, Arabian DNA is more pronounced due to historical migrations during the Islamic Caliphates. Religious communities also show subtle genetic differences. Syrian Christians often preserve a slightly higher percentage of older Levantine and Byzantine ancestry, while Syrian Muslims tend to exhibit more Arabian DNA due to the influence of the Islamic conquests. Despite these variations, all Syrians share a common genetic foundation rooted in the Levant, reflecting their shared history and geographical ties. Modern genetic studies underscore the resilience and adaptability of the Syrian people. Despite centuries of upheaval and change, their genetic makeup remains a rich tapestry, uniting past civilizations with the present. This genetic legacy is a testament to Syria's unique role as a crossroads of human history. Genetics is more than just science. It's a window into the story of humanity. For Syrians, genetic research has unlocked a deeper understanding of their ancient roots, from the Stone Age farmers of the Levant to the complex migrations of the Islamic era. Each genetic layer tells a story of resilience, adaptation, and connection. Yet, as fascinating as genetics is, it's only part of the picture. The diversity of the Syrian genome reflects a history of cultural exchange, but it also speaks to something even greater: the unity of its people. Despite differences in ancestry, religion, and region, Syrians share a collective identity forged through shared experiences and a common heritage. This story reminds us of a universal truth. While our genes may differ, they connect us to the same human journey. By studying the genetic origins of Syrians, we uncover not only their unique history, but also their place in the broader narrative of human civilization. As we reflect on this, let's remember that diversity is not a divider, but a strength, a bridge that connects us to one another. In celebrating the rich heritage of Syrians, we also celebrate the shared history that unites us all. Through the lens of genetics, we see that our differences are what make humanity extraordinary, and our shared roots are what make us one. For more insightful videos like this, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share it with others who might find it helpful.